This lesson is going to be over the characteristics of quadratics. Well, first of all, what are quadratics? Well, a quadratic equation is any equation which has an x squared term as its highest degree. That means that that has to be the highest degree term in the problem. So let's look at some examples and some non-examples so we can see here what we're talking about. Well, some examples here, we have y equals x squared plus 6x plus 2. Well, in the equation, we have x squared, we have a 6x, and we have a positive 2. So in this equation, x squared is the highest degree term. So that is a quadratic because it has an x squared term and it's the highest degree. The next equation is y equals 4x squared. Well, it's the only term, so it also is a quadratic because it has an x squared as its highest term. It doesn't matter how many terms are in the equation as long as x squared is the highest term. The next equation, negative x squared, and then a positive 7. That also is a quadratic because negative x squared is the highest degree term. The next one is 3x squared, 2x, and 1. And again, 3x squared is the highest term, so that is a quadratic equation. Now, looking at the next example, under non-examples, we have y equals 4x plus 5. Well, this is not an example because there is no x squared term. So because there's not an x squared term, that is not a quadratic. In the next equation, y equals 7 cubed plus 2x squared plus 1. Well, we have an x squared term here, but we also have an x cubed term, which is a higher degree than the x squared. So this is not an equation because x cubed is higher than x squared. So it cannot be a quadratic because we can only have x squared, x's, or just plain numbers in our equation. Nothing higher than an x squared. So those are some examples and non-examples of quadratics. Make sure you keep that handy so you can compare equations and make sure you know which one's a quadratic and which one is not a quadratic. When you graph quadratics, or a quadratic equation, it looks like a U, and this is called a parabola. So when you see this word parabola, that just means that it looks like a U. Now, looking here, the U can go down, or the U can go up. Okay? Those are the only ways that x squared equations can be. The U can face down or the U can face up. But remember, it's important to remember that these are called parabolas. Now, a parabola shape. Again, the parabolas have a U shape, so they can open up or they can open down. The coefficient of the x squared tells you whether or not it opens up or down. If it's a positive coefficient, meaning a number in the front of the x, so if it's 1x squared or 4x squared or 5x squared, these are all positives. And because they are positives, the U is going to open up. Now, if you had negative 4x squared, negative 25x squared, negative 6x squared, all of those are negative, so the parabola will open down. So if it's a positive, the parabola will open up. If it's negative, the parabola will open down. So let's look at these examples. We have y equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 2. Well, we're looking at our x squared term. And remember, if it's positive, it's up. If it's negative, it's down. So let's look to see if that's true. Here we have a negative 3x squared, so the parabola will open down because there's a negative in front of the 3x squared. The next problem, we have just a positive x squared, so that means it's going to open up because it's a positive in front of the x squared. Here's another example. Here, our x term and our x squared term are opposite, which they can be opposite, it doesn't matter. So we have to find it, make sure we're looking at the right one. This is a positive x squared, and here is a negative x squared, 7x squared. So that means that this one is going to open up because it's a positive, and this one is going to open down because it's a negative. You see your negative sign right there. Now let's try these without looking at a graph. The first one is negative 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. Next one is y equals 7x squared plus 2. Y equals 3x minus 5x squared plus 6. Y equals negative 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. We're going to do the first one together, and then I want you to press pause and finish the last three to see if you're correct. Well, in this first equation, I'm going to find the term. Remember that it's the x squared term. So here's my x squared term. Then I'm going to determine whether or not it's positive or negative. So I determine that it's negative, so my u is going to face down. You go ahead and press pause and try the next three, and then come back and check your answers. Now that you're back, let's check our answers. In the next equation, we have 7x squared plus 2. So this is our x squared term. It is positive, so our u is going to open up. Y equals 3x minus 5x squared plus 6. We're looking for our x squared term. Remember, you need to take the sign that's in front of it, so that's a negative 5x squared. So it's going to open down. Y equals negative 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. We're looking for the x squared term. Remember to take the sign with it. It is a negative, so it's going to open down. Alright, let's review the characteristics of quadratics, things that you need to know about quadratics. The first item is that x squared is the highest degree term, so any equation that does not have an x squared term or has an x squared term as the highest, or as the x squared term is not the highest, then that is not a parabola. We also need to know that it's called a parabola, and that we need to know that a positive opens up and a negative opens down. Alright, hopefully this has helped you understand that quadratic equations have x squared as its highest degree. You know that their graph is called a parabola and it's shaped like a U, and that it opens up if it's positive and opens down if it's negative. If you're still confused, make sure you go through the lesson again or watch the video again, and if you're still confused, contact your teacher.